Okay. So Hare Krishna, welcome everybody to Day 4 Gita Gyan, Essence of Bhagavad Gita Level 1. So we'll get started. We dedicate this to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, Founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Join me in this prayer if you can. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vigna Vinasha Narasimha iti namine Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayitim Girim Yatkripa Tamaham Mande Sri Guru Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Mishwaram. Om Tat Sat. Jai Sri Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadramai, Sri Sri Nitai Sundar Gaura Hari Panchatattva Ki. And this is Sri Sri Radha Shama Sundar. This is from Krishna Balaram Temple in Vrindavan. And this is Radha Shama Sundar and the two gopis, Lalita and Vishaka. This is the close-up of them. So we take their blessings as well before we begin. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Gita Mahatmya. Oops. Why is there an overlap? Okay, never mind. Gita Dita Cha Yenapi Bhakti Bhavena Chetasa Veda Shastra Puranani Tena Ditani Sarvashaha. The study of the Vedas and Puranas, verily, the study of all, this is the same which I mentioned yesterday. Verily, the study of all scriptures is completed in all respects by one who studies the Gita with devotion. Apologies for this. This is from the same as yesterday's one, so I should have changed it. Never mind. So again, we can just repeat the same Gita Mahatmya. We will begin before we go to chapter 14, we will recap chapter 13 first. So the topic was the most confident, this also I forgot to correct. Apologies, I was quite busy today. I didn't really have a time to change this. I forgot about it actually. So chapter 13 was, if I'm not mistaken, nature, the enjoyer, and consciousness, right? So that was the question: the nature, the enjoyer, and consciousness. So that was the topic of chapter 13. Questions and answers. So this was the subtopics that we went through in chapter 13. Questions and answers. What were the questions? Basically, Arjuna will ask Krishna, what is Kshetra? What is Jnana? What is Nyayam? what is Prakriti and what is Purusha and who is the knower of all this knowledge. So we spoke about this. I'll just quickly recap them very fast. So when we talk about Kshetra, Kshetra means the place where the activities take place. So that could mean the material creation. But for the soul, he cannot interact with material creation unless he has a body. So therefore, this body is also a Kshetra for the soul. So, and when we talk about body, so this body is material. So this is the model on how we can understand the body. So the soul is like our hand, which is covered by a glove. So the glove is like the body, the hand is like the soul. So similarly, the soul is covered by two layers. One is the subtle body, and the other is the gross body. And if you look at the gross body is called gross because we can experience it directly with our five senses. So it is made up of, if you remember again, the Panchabhutas, the five elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether. Combinations of these will form the gross material body. And that is just one covering. We also have the subtle material body. The subtle material body is made up of subtle material elements. Why it's called subtle? Because it's not something which we can identify easily from our senses. In fact, it's not possible to identify from our senses. And it can be understood. We can logicize it, but we cannot directly perceive it. So therefore, it's called subtle. So why? So what is this subtle elements? No, manas, buddhi, and ahankara, mind, intelligence, and the false ego. We call it the false ego because this is not our actual identity. So the false ego, because we think we are certain person, we think we are this name, of this nationality, of this family. So that is temporary, and it is not actually really our identity. So it's like play acting. Imagine it's like someone is having a drama. So if an actor or an actress, they really get into the drama or get into the acting, they imagine that they are that person. So that is an example of a false ego, basically role playing, to the extent that the role playing is so realistic that they forget their actual situation. So therefore, it's called the false ego. It's material. So, but at the same time, there is also a true ego, which is the real spiritual identity of that jiva. And these jivas are individual. They are not basically, that is not like a hive consciousness or anything like that. Individual jivatmas with personalities. So this is subtle material body. It is still material. Though it is subtle, it is still material, made up of Prakriti. Later we will talk on that. And this is basically covering the soul. And we heard already at that what happens. Soul moves together with the subtle material body, which is mind, intelligence, and false ego. And it separates from the gross material body, goes into a new material body, a new gross body at the time of death. So this was some of the questions which were raised. We discussed about the Kshetra, which is the place of action, the opportunity for the jiva to satisfy his desires. So that is the Kshetra. And then Krishna goes on to talk about the field of activity, which is, when we talk about Kshetra, it's not just the body. He talks further about the entire material creation. So we talked about the five gross elements, and then we also have the knowledge acquiring senses. So input devices or input capability. So how to get this knowledge? How do we get our input? We get this from these five knowledge acquiring senses, Pancha Jnanendriyas, which are also considered elements in Vedic understanding. So eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin, and working senses, Pancha Karmendriyas. So this is voice, legs, hands, anus, and the genitals, which we have already discussed yesterday. And together, this is the body or the yantra or the machine which is ready for the soul to inhabit. And in this way, execute his desires. So that is the body, material body. And once the soul inhabits, so before the soul inhabits, there is also the sense objects. So why does the soul want to inhabit this body? Because the soul wants to experience and enjoy these sense objects, which are part of this material creation. So in order to enjoy these sense objects, which are called the Pancha Tanmatras, form, sound, smell, taste, and touch. So therefore, they need to inhabit a material body which is made up of these. Then when they interact with the sense objects, they are able to experience it. But as I also said, there is also a subtle body. So the soul is encapsulated in a subtle body, which is inserted into this gross material body, so that he can enjoy the sense objects, the Pancha Tanmatras. So this subtle body or Sukshma Sarira consists of mind, intelligence, and false ego as mentioned. And all of these are differentiated. You see, all these things, now gross elements, karmendriyas, jnanendriyas, tanmatras, and sukshma sarira, all this is differentiated already. It's completely differentiated, just like how we have one cell, the cell will differentiate, and then each cell will differentiate further to have its own particular purpose. So specific purpose like that. We learned this, right, in meiosis and all that. So anyway, that is differentiation. So in the beginning, there was no differentiation. It was all one single lump of matter. So this one single lump of matter, which is undifferentiated, and not only undifferentiated, it is also unmanifested. It's not even there to be seen. It hasn't manifested itself yet. So that initially everything comes from this, just like a seed, just like a banyan tree comes from it, right? So the seed of everything material is called pradhan. So this is the seed of everything which is material. From this seed, everything else came. But before these came, there were other things that comes also. So in chapter 14, we will talk about that a little. So this is all Kshetra. And then we talked about what were the other points? Arjuna asked about Kshetra. He asked also about Purusha, who is the enjoyer. So the soul covered by his false ego, wanting to enjoy, he thinks he's the Purusha, and therefore in the material world, he acts like a Purusha, like the enjoyer. That's material. And in order to have this playground for these material activities to take place, therefore the Lord uses the Prakriti energy. He creates the material manifestation. The material manifestation which is created, which is the universe, the elements, the body, and all that, it's called Prakriti. So Prakriti, we will talk about this in detail again in chapter 14. So in Prakriti, which is part of the shadow energy of the Lord, right? So in this way, the soul enters into Prakriti and he is able to interact with Prakriti, and he tries to enjoy in this way. So one who knows these differences, one who knows this, right, is called Kshetranya, the one who knows the difference between spirit and matter. So he's called a Kshetranya, one who knows the Kshetra. And these topics that we've talked about just now, all of it comprises of what is called knowledge, jnana. So anything outside this sphere is not called jnana. So it has to do with difference between matter and spirit. And the object of jnana, which is the Supreme Lord, is called Jnana. That's the object of Lord. And he is also Purusha, the actual Purusha. So that is the understanding of what we discussed in chapter 13 yesterday. So the subtopics were questions and answers, and Krishna talks about Kshetra, and then Krishna talks about Jnanam, Jneyam, about himself, Prakriti and Purusha, not too many verses, just 4 verses only. He will continue this discussion in chapter 14. And Kshetranya, this also, though he spoke to some extent, 24 to 35, he will continue this further in chapter 14 as well. So these were the key takeaways yesterday. Prakriti, Purusha, Kshetra, Kshetranya, Jnanam, Jneyam. And then we heard about the importance of hearing with faith from scripture, right, or authorities and devotees. Here, faith is very important for us to understand these points in the beginning, because it's inconceivable at the beginning. So later on, as we develop, then we were able to understand this better. The Lord reveals this from the heart. So today we will go to chapter 14. It's quite an interesting chapter, especially the later part of it also, because we'll be talking about in more detail the 3 modes of nature. 3 modes of nature is usually very interesting. Talks so anyway, in Sanskrit, this is called Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga. Vibhaga means to differentiate, and to differentiate the qualities or the modes of the gunas, 3 gunas. Guna means quality. So it begins with basically the subtopic here is Krishna will speak further Prakriti Jnana for Param Gati. So he's talking about, Krishna will talk further about understanding what is Prakriti in order for us to understand and attain the Supreme Lord. So there are few ways to understand Prakriti. And why Prakriti understanding is important, because this detail will help us to develop that faith about the nature of this material creation, the nature of this material world. When we hear about these things further, our faith will deepen. So that's why, in this way, we can attain Param Gati. So 14.2, this verse comes, Idam jnanam upashritya mama sadharmyam agataha sarge api nopajayante pralayena vyatanti cha. By becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. So here is saying, right, that's the reason he's explaining further details. So that now he's already established the goal. He's already revealed himself. He's already revealed the process of how to attain the goal. Now he is filling in the details to strengthen our faith, so that by hearing more about the nature of creation, the nature of the world, we will be able to parallel it with our own experience and what we have gone through, and in this way slowly develop our faith. Thus established, one is not born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution. So basically, one who understands this thoroughly can eventually come to the Param Gati. And then from verses 3 to 5, Krishna will give knowledge, jnana, of Brahman and Prakriti. So 14.3. So here Krishna says, Mama yonir mahat brahma tasmin garbham dadamyaham sambhavaha sarva bhutanam tato bhavati bharata. The total material substance called Brahman is the source of birth, and it is that Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the births of all living beings, O son of Bharata. So, as I said, chapters 13 onwards, they supply details. So, therefore, in the beginning, in chapter 7 and all that, Brahman was discussed, but very briefly, it's spoken about being the ultimate, it's spoken about as being the objective of yoga. There are 3 levels of God realization, and Brahman is the first level of God realization. So this was discussed in earlier chapters. But what exactly is this Brahman consisting of? So that was not given in detail. So here Krishna will speak, right? So this total material substance called Brahman, how do we know it's material substance? Because there is a verse in the Mundaka Upanishad. 1:119. This is from the Vedas. Tasmat etad brahma nama rupam anam cha jayate. The total material substance here is mentioned also. Tasmat etad Brahma nama rupam anam cha jayate. The Mahat Tattva is described as Brahman, but it's beyond that also. So we will describe using a model after this. First, let me just go through these verses and then we will refer to them again. So Krishna is saying the total material substance called Brahman, so is the source of birth. So later I will point out what consists Brahman. Okay. And it is that Brahman, which is the Brahma Jyoti, right, of the effulgence of the Lord. It is that Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the births of all living beings. So when Krishna talks about Brahman here in this particular verse, he is referring to the material creation. He is not talking about the direct effulgence of the Lord, which is coming from him only, but then just a moment, I will show you the model. It will help you to understand better. Let me finish this verse as well. Sarvayonishu kaunteya murtaya shambhavantiyaha tasham brahma mahatyonir aham bija pradapita. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this nature, in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving father. So here is more evidence about the Lord being our Supreme Father. So remember, I've previously mentioned that the Lord accommodates the recalcitrant jiva's desire to enjoy separately from the Lord due to the lack. I mean, in the initial stage, they developed envy, and from the envy came kama, desire to enjoy. And in this way, the Lord allowed the material creation. The Purusha allowed the Prakriti Shakti to be created. So the Jiva came here. That we already heard before. And now, after this, we will hear in more detail how it happens. So Prakriti Jnana for Param Gatim, Jnana for Brahman and Prakriti. So let's try to understand this with a model. So when we talk about Bhagavan or Parameshwara, he is also known as the Shaktiman, right? Source, possessor of all energies. So all energies are taking shelter of the Supreme Lord. He has multiple energies, innumerable energies, cannot be counted. But they can be categorized into two categories. So this energy, as I mentioned before, that is called the spiritual energy, which is the Antaranga Shakti, spiritual energy. Sometimes it's called also Parashakti, the superior energy. So in this spiritual energy, there are many, many types. And one of those types is also the jivas, all of us. So we are also part of that energy of the Supreme Lord. We have a special position. We are energy. At the same time, we are also amsa, part and parcel. So we will talk about amsa or part and parcel later on, because Krishna says, right, I am the seed-giving father. So if we are part of the seed of the Lord, then we are also a part of it. So in that sense is amsa. But at the same time, we are also part of the energy of the Lord. We are called the Tatashta Shakti. So anyway, that is part of this. We are spirit. What I'm trying to say here is we are spiritual. We are spiritual energy. And the Lord also has a shadow energy. The shadow of this Antaranga Shakti, it is known as Bahiranga Shakti, which is material energy. And the Lord does not associate with this material energy. He associates directly with the spiritual energy. The material energy is simply a reflection, a shadow. And this material energy is what will be used to create the kshetra or the place or the field for these jivas who want to not be with the Lord in the spiritual energy. Because to be with the Lord in the spiritual energy, they have to develop bhakti. They have to be having that servitorship, loving servitorship mood. And the Lord doesn't force. So he gives the free will. So these jivas who are recalcitrant, therefore they come to the Bahiranga Shakti. They come to here, and here they can go through their desires to enjoy separately from the Lord. So to understand these two energies, Antaranga Shakti and Bahiranga Shakti, the Jiva and the Lord, this is called Brahman. So the Brahman consists of all of these. So sometimes the scriptures will talk about Brahman, discussing it as the whole thing. Sometimes they will only refer it to as the material energy. So sometimes they will refer to Brahman as the Jiva. Sometimes they will refer to Brahman as the Supreme Lord. When they refer to the Brahman as the Supreme Lord, they will sometimes use the word Parabrahman. So here they differentiate. The Vedas will give differentiation of Brahman and Parabrahman. The Parabrahman is also, in short, the Vedas sometimes will call it as Brahman, but there is still a differentiation. He is the ultimate. So basically, everything to do with the Lord, whether it is spiritual or material, everything to do with the Lord is called Brahman. So if one understands that everything is basically creation of the Lord, part and parcel of the Lord, nothing exists outside of the Lord, everything exists within, that is Brahman understanding. That means one understands that I am Brahman, material creation is Brahman, everything is Brahman. So that is the understanding of Brahman. So now we talk about Bahiranga Shakti. So in this material creation, how it takes place. So in the material creation, imagine it's like a seed. Like say we take a banyan tree, the seed of the banyan tree. In the beginning, the seed is unmanifested. Okay, so we can call this, the banyan tree is unmanifested in this seed form. Now what will happen? How will the seed start to manifest? It will start to manifest when there is sun and rain. So when there is sun and rain, the right conditions are set, the seed will begin to germinate. And when it begins to germinate, eventually it will sprout. So now it no longer looks the same. You see, this seed and this seed, there is a difference. This seed is dormant, therefore we call it unmanifested. This seed is no longer dormant, it's already activated, but it looks the same. It's no longer dormant, it's already activated by the sun and the rain. And now this seed is already sprouted. It is not the same as this seed also. So you could say it is differentiated now. Here it is unmanifested, here it is manifested, here it is manifested and starting to differentiate. And this is fully manifested and fully differentiated. Okay, so we can try to understand it that way. This is how the transformation of the seed. So similarly, the material creation also takes place in the same way. So in the beginning, this entire material creation exists as one single element or one single thing. Element is not the word, one single thing, right? Material energy, which is called pradhan. So, and this pradhan is the sum of all the material elements existing together. That is pradhan. So it is called unmanifested and undifferentiated. It's basically the shadow of the spiritual energy. So the shadow has not been activated, it has not been used, because the Lord only associates with the spiritual energy. So that is in the beginning. So when the jiva decides it is to be sent to the material creation, then the Lord activates this pradhan. And when it becomes activated, it becomes what is called prakriti. It's material energy which is manifested. So that's the difference between pradhan and prakriti. So just like this seed here and this seed here. So what's the agent that energizes this seed? Here it's dormant. You keep it like that, it will never sprout. What is the agent which makes the seed suddenly activated? It starts to germinate at this point, ready to sprout. So that is basically the glance of the Lord. The Lord will glance upon Prakriti, and simply by glancing upon Prakriti, Prakriti will get agitated. So it begins to manifest, ready to serve the purpose of the Lord, but it is still undifferentiated. It is still the seed. Okay. So then what happens? Even by the glance of the Lord, the seed germinates. Prakriti now begins to manifest. So when it begins to manifest, then technically it is called Mahat Tattva. So what is the difference between Prakriti and Mahat Tattva? Both are manifested. Both are manifested. That's the difference between Pradhan. Pradhan is unmanifested. But the difference between Prakriti and Mahatattva is already differentiated, starting to differentiate. The beginning differentiation and the end differentiation, both are called Mahatattva. And in the same way, the material universe is created and ready for the jivas to enter and exploit if they want to. So that is this. And what is it made of? So now it begins to differentiate, right? So it begins to differentiate. And within this material universe, there are the sense objects, the 5 Pancha Tanmatras, which the jivas want to experience and enjoy. So there would be form, sound, smell, taste, and touch, which is now already manifested within this within this material creation. And at the same time, where do these sense, form, sound, smell, taste, and touch manifest from? It basically manifests from Prakriti. The first thing that manifests is the gross elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether. From there, they further differentiate. The 5 acquiring senses, the panchakarmas, karmendriyas, and in this way, the subtle body and also the 5 sense objects. So in this way, they manifest fully. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 5, 10, 15, 20, 20, and plus, 5, 10, 15, 20 here. And this is 21, 22, 23, and plus Pradhan. So altogether is 24 elements. So 5, 10, 15, 20, and 23, and 23 plus 1 Pradhan. These two are same thing as Pradhan. It's just that they are differentiated, and this is manifested, and this is completely differentiated. So it's basically the same thing only. So therefore, we don't include this. Okay, so that's a bit of technical understanding. So, and from here, it goes further. Now, as I was saying, these jivas, they want to enjoy separately from the Lord. They can't do it in the spiritual energy. They cannot do it in the Antaranga Shakti, because everything is revolving around service towards the Lord. Antaranga energy itself is truth. It is Satyam. So it's not possible for the souls to think that they are the master. So in order for them to satisfy their desire, they must think that they are the master. So therefore, they are put into illusion. When they enter into Bahiranga Shakti is Maya. It's illusion, opposite of this. We discussed all this before already. So the jiva has to come here in order to experience it. So in order for this to be created, this playground to be created, the Lord glances upon Pradhan. Pradhan gets energized and it manifests. And when it manifests, it's called Prakriti, ready to serve the Lord. And when Prakriti ready to serve the Lord, it starts to create different differences. It begins to open up and differentiate into all the different elements and all the various varieties in this world. So that is ready now. Prakriti is ripe and ready. So therefore, the jivas will enter into Prakriti. They want to enjoy this Prakriti because they want to experience this enjoyment. So further, what? So this Pradhan converting into Prakriti, how it happens? Here we have this picture. This picture shows how the Lord, in the form of Mahavishnu, simply glances upon the Pradhan. This is the personification of the Bahiranga Shakti. So the personification of Bahiranga Shakti is Durga Devi. So, and the Lord's glance, because as I told you just now, the Lord doesn't associate directly with the material energy. So the Lord's glance is basically the manifestation of Shiva Tattva. So this Shiva Tattva associates with Bahiranga Shakti. And therefore, they are the basically the lords of the material world. So this Prakriti is ready for the jiva to come and stay. So in order for the Prakriti, it's like this. It's like we buy a house, a property. The property has not been built yet, but the land has been purchased and the developer is there. So everything is ready and they are building. So that's like Prakriti. Okay, before we buy the land hasn't been cleared, the land hasn't been purchased. So that's like Pradhan. So once we buy the land has been gazetted, it's been purchased, it has been cleared, the developer has come, he has set up his site office, he started construction, that's Prakriti. So when the construction takes place, the buildings are being built, the different rooms of the building is being created. So that is called Mahatattva. And that is the ultimate expansion of the universe. All the different species, all the different elements, everything is created, the world is ready. So now what happens? The jiva will want to enter. So remember just now, chapter 14, Krishna says, I am the seed-giving father. So he inserts the jiva into the Prakriti by his energy. And therefore, the father is like the Supreme Lord, and the Prakriti, Durga, is like our mother. So we have taken birth in the material energy. So therefore, Durga becomes like our mother. And the Lord doesn't do it directly. He glances at Durga or Pradhan, and he takes the form, and that glance is basically a manifestation of the Lord, and that is Shiva Tattva. So in that way, Shiva, Durga, they are like the father and mother of the material creation for the jiva to enter. But we directly come from the spiritual energy of the Lord. So I hope that's clear. Before we okay, anyway, let me just continue. If you feel later you want to ask, we can revisit this model again. Okay. So once the jiva enters, it enters into this Bahiranga Shakti and takes its birth in the various species to try to enjoy and lord over this material creation. So this jiva, what happens? This jiva, we must remember, he is spirit, whereas the material creation is material, it's not spirit. So the jiva enters into Prakriti. The example is like, just like clear water rain. You know, when there's rain, when the rain drops from the sky, it is very pure, it is clean. And then it passes through the atmosphere and through the smog and through the industrial excess in the air and everything. And finally, it drops flat on the ground. And when it does that, what happens? It mixes with the mud, it mixes with the earth, and it becomes mud. So this water, which was initially very pure, appears to look like as if it is muddy, but actually it's not, it's just mixed. So in the same way, the jiva enters into this material creation, and in this way, the ego, the false ego, all this ahankara, the three modes of material nature, and illusion, moha, they capture the jiva and encapsulate him, and in this way the jiva is conditioned. So this is called conditioning. So an example is given this way, and the jiva therefore takes its birth in various species, including human life. So you have a nice verse here, verse 14.4. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving father. So I'm repeating this verse again. So there's an explanation given in one of the Puranas. It's like how the scorpion, it will enter into a place where rice is kept, and what it will do, it will lay its eggs over there. So after that, the scorpion will go away. So an unsuspecting person will enter into the place where the granary, where the rice is kept, and then suddenly from within the rice, they will find, oh, baby scorpions are coming out of the rice. And then an ignorant person may think that, oh, just the baby scorpions are coming out of the rice, so therefore the rice is the mother of the scorpion. They may think like that. So therefore, that is not the real understanding. So one who is kshetranya, one who knows the knowledge of this kshetra, right? One who knows Brahman, he will understand that actually material creation is not the real mother. This Durga or this Prakriti, Durga means fort, fortress. It means basically prison house. So this fortress or this material energy is not really the source of the living entity. It appears as if the living entity has come out from this material energy, but it's not. So it has a divine origin from the spiritual source, from the spiritual world. So this is the verse that says that I am like the seed-giving father, and therefore material nature is not the real cause of birth, it is a proxy. Something like a surrogate mother, right? So when a father sometimes cannot conceive a child, there are ways where artificial insemination, and it's put inside the womb of another lady. So it's like a surrogate mother. And then verse 14.5, Sattvam Rajastama iti gunaha prakriti sambhavaha nibadnanti mahabaho dehe dehinam avyayam. Now, if the child of the father, if the semen of the father is inserted into a surrogate mother, so what will happen? The child which is born from that surrogate mother will have the quality of both the father and the mother, isn't it? So the nature of the father is there, which is the soul is eternal, the soul is unbreakable, insoluble, and the soul is everlasting, ever existing, and cannot be destroyed by weapons. All this quality of the soul is the same as the father. But because he has taken birth from the womb of material energy, so therefore he also gets encapsulated by the qualities of the material energy. So when we talk about the qualities of the material energy, what is this quality? What is this guna of this material energy? So guna prakriti, the guna of the material energy. So what is this guna of the material energy? Basically, it is the three guna, sattva, rajas, and tamas. So material nature, when we speak about material nature, the nature consists of three different modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And this entire chapter, chapter 14, we are going to go in detail to talk about some detail, not fully, but we'll talk about the nature of these three modes. And then later on in chapter 17 and chapter 18, further details of these three modes and how it acts with all of us, it's described further. So when the eternal living entity comes in contact with Prakriti, material nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these modes. So here's that verse which talks about that. So from 14.1 to 14.5, it's very, very highly philosophical. It talks about the creation of this material energy. So in Bhagavad Gita, this is briefly described, but there are other places in scripture where they describe this in detail, particularly the Srimad Bhagavatam. It talks about these matters in detail. So 14.3 talks about the Brahman, how Mahatattva, here when he's talking about Brahman, Krishna is referring to the Mahatattva aspect of the Brahman, which is the material creation of the Brahman. Right? And in general, the Brahman, all Brahman is basically basis of life, this Mahatattva. And where Krishna is the supreme Parabrahman, the originator, where this Brahman rests upon him. So there was that verse here, we mentioned that. And when we talk about material creation, material nature, it has three modes. So these three modes, they act like it's like a wave which tosses and turns us. It's like we have fallen into this ocean. This ocean is this ocean of material creation, material energy, and we get tossed. Just the ocean is so big. Material energy, Durga Devi is extremely powerful. So she is very large, and we are, although part and parcel of the Lord, we are Anu. We are very small. Whereas Durga Devi is a very large expansion of the entire shadowy energy of the Lord. So therefore, we will get covered in illusion, and we will get tossed and turned and tossed by these various waves. And these waves are like the three modes of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. And these three modes also keep us trapped within this material creation. So therefore, Krishna will say in chapter 2 itself, transcend Traigunya Vishaya Vedas Nistrai Guna Bhavarjuna. He will say, transcend these three modes, O Arjuna, go beyond the three modes. So before we go there, let us talk about these three modes first. What are these three modes? So 14.6, Tatra Sattvam Nibalatvat Prakashakam Anamayam Sukha Sangena Badnati Jnana Sangena Chanaga. O sinless one, the mode of goodness, Sattva, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. So, few things. First of all, definition of the mode of goodness: it is purer than the others. Okay, it is illuminating. So, if you want to illuminate, means it's basically to understand knowledge. So it creates knowledge, it's illuminating, it reveals the truth. And it frees one from sinful reaction. So there seems to be a paradox. Here it says frees, and here it says condition. So the mode of goodness both frees and conditions. How is that? It frees one from sin, because when one is illuminated with knowledge, one understands what is sinful and what is not sinful. So one tries to lead his life in a pious manner. Punya, performing punya karma, piety. So therefore, his future is bright, at least in the material world. He will not take birth in lower species of life. But at the same time, Krishna says, this mode of goodness, it is nevertheless binding, because it conditions. Remember the three modes. When I said the three modes, I didn't say the mode of goodness is beyond the three modes. It is still part of the three modes. It is still material. So therefore, because it's material, it still binds us. Now, how can goodness bind a soul in this material creation? It binds the soul into peacefulness and a sense of a satisfaction. So, there are some people who will feel that my life is good. I have nothing to really, why must I study scripture? Why must I try to learn about yoga or do all these things? My life is good. I'm peaceful. I have a good family, I have a good life, I am intelligent, I am thinking of various ways of how I can do good to society, I can do charity. So there are people who think this way, and they do good activities, punya karma, but they do not think about self-realization. They don't think about how to escape this binding of birth and death. So therefore, it is still binding, mode of goodness. But it's a good stepping point. When you come there, from there we can easily get knowledge, and from there we can try to transcend. Right? But at the moment, it's still one who doesn't try to transcend, they can become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. They feel very good. They feel very good about themselves. They feel they are better than other people. They feel that they are in a superior position compared to others. They will feel sad for other people. They will feel pity for other people. Oh, but but they are not actively trying to understand the position of the Atma and trying to actually make a difference to their birth and death situation. So that is how mode of goodness works. So it is nevertheless, it's like we have three ropes. So this mode of goodness is like a very comfortable velvet rope. So the rope is velvety, it's very comfortable upon us, but it's still tying us down. So then there are other types of ropes also. So example of people in the mode of goodness, before that, before I talk about the other types of ropes, example of people in the mode of goodness, like, those who are scholarly, they are teachers, or they are those who are very much attuned to nature, naturalist, activists who are working towards charity. So these kind of people, they are generally situated in the mode of goodness, illuminating. It's defined by illumination and knowledge and happiness. Then we have what is called the mode of passion. So the mode of passion, Rajo Ragatmakam Vidhi Trishna Sangha Samudbhavam Tannibadnati Kaunteya Karma Sangena Dehinam. The mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings, O son of Kunti. And because of this, the embodied living entity is bound to material fruitive actions. So there's a difference between the mode of goodness here. The mode of goodness are mainly people who are satisfied in their situation. They don't look for anything further. They are just happy in their situation. They think that's it. That's they do not know what's going to happen in the future. Whereas the mode of passion, they are not happy. They are generally hankering. They are full of desires. So the mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings. So because being motivated by this, driven by these desires and longings, they tend to do many things which are very difficult to achieve, just so that they can achieve this. Like, for example, this mode of passion is necessary in procreation. So because procreation is a very difficult business, isn't it? Because there's a lot of responsibility involved. So, to bring up a family, the moment one procreates, one has to take care of the family, raise the child, think of the child's education, think of the child's marriage, think of the child's grandchildren, and in this way go on and on and on. So the mode of passion, therefore, to create an impetus for procreation, therefore passion is there, desire. So that is one thing. And desires also take other forms. Desire for wealth, desire for this, desire for, ultimately it all ends up in mating, eating, sleeping, and defending. But it's in various ways, and it's basically meant to also bolster the false ego. It's one of the ways to strengthen the false ego. So one works and tries all kinds of tricks to achieve his desires, by hook or by crook, by sin or by piety. They try to achieve these things. So this is the mode of passion. And then the third one, which is the worst one, that is called the mode of ignorance. Tamas. Tamastu ajnana jam vidhi mohanam sarva dehinam pramadalasya nirabhis tan nibadnati bharata. So if the mode of goodness was all about happiness, illumination, and knowledge, the mode of ignorance is tam ajnana. Jnana means knowledge. Ajnana is the opposite of knowledge, ignorance. And mohanam, moha means illusion. So illusion and ignorance, this defines the people or things which is in the mode of ignorance. O son of Bharata, know that the mode of darkness, born of ignorance, is the delusion, moha, of all embodied living entities, sarva dehinam. So sarva dehinam, note that it is for embodied living entities, just like the others also. So sarva dehinam. The results of this mode are madness, indolence, and sleep, which bind the conditioned soul. So this is the quality of the mode of goodness. And the type of people who are in this mode are typically classified. Now, for example, those who are always very angry, and those who are always in intoxicated state, like drugs or alcohol, or even things like anything which is illusory, like even playing computer games or addiction to TV. So basically, what are these? The addiction to screens. So why are these addictive? Anything which is addictive in a negative manner, because it is creating illusion. It is an escapism. It is not real. One tries to escape into computer games, or one tries to escape into serials, or one tries to escape into different ways. So these are basically manners of escapism or moha, delusion. So the results of this mode are madness, indolence, and sleep, which bind the conditioned soul very strongly. So this is the problem with this mode of ignorance. So in summary, we could roughly, this is a simple way of describing it. So sattva is like balance, harmony, positive, peace, clarity. Rajas is defined by activity, passion, movement, activity, energy, excitement, passion, like how I'm speaking now. And tamas, it is like inertia, sleep, inactivity, negativity, apathy, dullness. And here we are trying to analyze in detail these three modes. So Bhagavad Gita goes on from this verse and all the way to a few other verses, where it gives further details about these three modes in general. So we have already heard how goodness is defined with knowledge, and those people who are situated in goodness, that means they know what is right and what is wrong, right? Like legal civilians who are in the right side of the law. They know what is right and what is wrong, and they are never caught by the police. So these are the mode of goodness people. And we have already heard also how the mode of passion is intense, unlimited desires, longings, great attachment. So these are some keywords for us to identify the existence of the mode of passion in spheres of our life. Great attachment. They cannot tolerate, oh, I cannot live without this. I cannot live without you. I cannot live without my teddy bear or something. So these are great attachment. And then fruitive activities. Therefore, they work for it. They push themselves and try to attain this, motivated. Ignorance, delusion, darkness, madness, inertia. We have already heard this. And we've also heard about the binding force. Now, all these three, remember, these three modes are like ropes. They bind the soul within this material body to continuously go through the cycle of birth and death. Only one who is able to transcend these three modes is able to break through this chain. And how to do that? The path is yoga. Yoga breaks these chains, right? And here, how does goodness bind a person? It binds you with the sense of happiness, Oh, everything is fine, why bother? Satisfaction, so they don't feel like they need to do anything further. Knowledge, and the feeling of superiority. And passion, attachment, great attachment. They cry, they feel terrible when something is separated from them or someone. Passion, ropes of desire and attachment. These are basically, I'm referring them from verses. I'm because I don't want to go through all of them one by one. I'm just putting the key points here. Ignorance, madness, laziness, sleep, we have already discussed. And what's the result of these things? So the result of someone who lives one's life in the mode of goodness, the result is he gets piety, punya karma. And in this way, his next life, he elevates, he enjoys in different situations. He gets a good birth, he gets good karma, born with the silver spoon, right? Or if he's very pious, he will even go to heavenly planets and enjoy there, and in this way. And or knowledge, these are hallmarks of the mode of goodness, because piety and jnana is the hallmark of the mode of goodness. This, in our conditioned state, it is recommended that every one of us should try to at least come to the mode of goodness first. Don't talk about transcending yet, because transcendence cannot occur until we come to this mode of goodness. From there, we can transcend. It's like a stepping stone. It's like we are trying to reach something very high. In order to reach that something very high, we must first ascend the ladder to the topmost rung, and from there we can just leap and reach. So that is mode of goodness. So we have to come here. So, and then mode of passion. What is the result of doing things in the mode of passion? If somebody is passionate, somebody is always active. Currently the material world, everything goes around passion. People like to use the word, I'm passionate in this, I'm passionate in that. I do this with passion. So let's see what Bhagavad Gita says about the mode of passion. The result of the mode of passion is simply greed and misery. So this is what Krishna says about the result of the mode of passion. So we must note this very carefully in all that we do, in activities that we do. So we see that sometimes, especially like marriages, sometimes, the huge marriage, so much of passion involved in the marriage. And at the end, what happens? So situations. So better to begin things in the mode of goodness, always to do things in the mode of goodness. That will not lead to misery or greed. So we have to come to that. Ignorance. What leads to ignorance? What's the result? Ignorance will lead to further ignorance, which eventually will lead to madness, living in our own world, living in a bubble, ignorant of everything around us, trapped in our own mind, Alzheimer, dementia. So this is the result of the mode of ignorance, illusion, and eventually in a very bad state, real insanity. So this is, and it degrades one. So we will hear more on that also. So qualities of the three modes were discussed, results of the three modes. But having said that, we should also tell you that these three modes are not that simple. You cannot stereotype them so easily, so quickly also. They are very complicated. Just like how, I said that these three modes are like ropes, right, which tie us. Now, rope is a very good example, because when we look at a rope, you can see here I put purposely the three colors. A rope is made of what? A rope is made of strands, isn't it? So we call this a strand, right? And three, it's like braiding the hair. If somebody is braiding the hair, they will take three strands of hair and then they will braid the hair to form the braid. So that's how ropes form. So in the same way, these ropes are formed by the mode of passion, ignorance, and goodness is very fine. It actually begins at the fiber. So goodness, passion, ignorance forms one fiber. And then many goodness, passion, ignorance fibers form one yarn. And many goodness, passion, ignorance yarn forms one strand. And in this way, it forms a rope of either goodness, passion, or ignorance. So it's like a subdivision. Like a very simple example I can give you is like, let's say food. Food in the mode, we will hear about this in chapter 17, more about this food. So food in the mode of goodness can be, let's say, milk. Milk, for example. Milk is for a food in the mode of goodness. But if this milk is actually taken from a cow which has been tortured, nowadays the extraction of milk process is rather painful for the cow, especially Australian cows. They are machine milked. So when they are machine milked, they are the machines actually suck the milk until even when there is no milk left, and sometimes the cow is still caught in that machine, and sometimes blood also comes into the milk. So this is the problem with machine milked situation. So therefore, though this milk itself is in the mode of goodness, but because it went through this problem of how the cow had to go through this situation, and therefore it is tinged with some mode of passion. So it's like, you see, it's like goodness, but tinged with mode of passion. And especially the type of milk where the cow is killed after that for its flesh. So then there is passion and ignorance mixed in that milk, though milk itself is in the mode of goodness. Whereas a milk which is maybe organic milk, or the type of milk, the cow is happy to graze on food, on grass, and then it's happily giving milk, like how it was in those days. So the free pasture cows. So that milk itself is mode of goodness, but because the cow is taken care of in that way, so it's goodness, goodness, goodness all the way. Whereas this factory developed milk is goodness, passion. It's like goodness is the main thing, and then subcategory is passion, or subcategory further is ignorance, like that. So we can understand things that way. Right? So therefore, there are many subcategories. So sattva, raja, and tamas, they mix with each other. So sattva and tama, when they mix, they form a mixed situation. Sattva, tama mix. So tattva and rajas, they also mix like this. And in this way, further they mix. So it's like a rope. Fiber, 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 yarn, 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 then strand, then finally rope. So in this way, it's complex mixture. But still, one can still isolate the qualities of this. One can learn to identify what is passion, ignorance, and goodness from the qualities which Krishna has described here. Okay. So then 14:10, Krishna says, sometimes the mode of goodness becomes prominent. And at the same time, it is not always the same case. It's not like always one is in the mode of goodness. And it's not always one is in the mode of passion also, right? So Krishna says, sometimes the mode of goodness becomes prominent, defeating the modes of passion and ignorance. Sometimes the mode of passion defeats goodness and ignorance, and other times ignorance defeats goodness and passion. In this way, there is always a competition for supremacy. So in a human being, in all living entities, in everything, these three modes are always turning and turning and turning. Just like the waves. Sometimes the waves are splashing you this side. Sometimes this wave is splashing you that side. Sometimes that wave is splashing you that side. So it is always rotating. So one who is trying to follow yoga will learn to identify from the guidance of scripture and guru how one should live one's life in the mode of goodness as much as possible, and to let go the mode of passion and ignorance. Completely, we should avoid mode of ignorance, and mode of passion, now and then it's necessary, but as much as possible, try to be situated in the mode of goodness. From there, one can make further advancement to eventually transcend the three modes. So then Krishna continues. He's given the quality of the modes, he's given the result of the modes. And now Krishna will talk about what happens when someone dies in these three modes. if someone at the time of death is because we just said, right, these three modes are always rotating. So we don't know, it's like a wheel of fortune. Suddenly we spin the wheel. We don't know at the time when the wheel stops, which mode it's going to stop at. So at the time that we die, we do not know which mode is going to come. So this is what will happen if we don't try to master the three modes while we are alive. So yada sattve, okay, I'll just go to the translation. When one dies in the mode of goodness, what happens? He attains to the pure higher planets of the great sages. So punya, piety. So therefore he goes at a very, he attains higher planets. Sarva, Sargaloka, Bhuvarloka, like that he attains. Maharloka, Taparloka, all the different planetary systems of higher beings. And when one dies in the mode of passion, he takes birth amongst those engaged in fruitive activities. In other words, he takes birth again in Bhuloka. So Bhuloka is called Karma Kshetra. So the Kshetra where activities take place. So therefore, this is the result. And if someone dies in the mode of ignorance, right, he takes birth in the animal kingdom, or goes down to hellish worlds. So this is in 1418. These things are mentioned. Tata pralinas tamasi mudda yonishu. That means taking birth amongst the foolish. So that's like the animals. Jayate. This is what happens to them. So therefore, 1420, Krishna says, when the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes associated with the material body, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. So even while we are alive, we can come to that stage where we can be transcended of these three modes. So here we have a picture of how the three modes actually control many of the activities in our life. So for example, we may get a certain type of body, a certain type of mind, a certain type of environment, which will be gearing us towards a certain mode, right? Like, for example, we work in a highly stressful area. So mode of passion is predominant. So what it will do, it will make us also try to react in that passionate way. We will get angry, we will get upset, we will get... So it's not like it was forcing us to do it. We had a choice. We still have a choice. We don't have to necessarily react in that way. But, you know, for most people, they will get driven in that direction when they surround themselves in such an environment. So therefore, these three modes, these are the three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. So in this way, in various ways, they control our situations in life. How we react to it, it is within our willpower. That we will talk about in detail in level 2 when we speak about karma. Okay. So then Arjuna inquires, "Oh, my dear Lord, by which symptom is one known who is transcendent to these three modes, who is transcendental to these three modes?" Because Krishna here says, right, when one embodies, when one transcends them, then he can enjoy nectar in this life. So Arjuna is curious, how to know this person who has transcended? What is his behavior? Arjuna will ask. And how does he transcend the modes of nature? So this is again talking about that liberated personality, the symptoms of a highly elevated person in yoga or bhakti. So the symptoms and behavior, Krishna, I'm just going to summarize here, verses 21 to 25. So Krishna will say, one who does not hate the modes and qualities. So he begins with this. So one does not hate the modes. They just understand that this is part of nature. This is how the world works. So he doesn't hate it. At the same time, he tries to transcend these three modes, right? So he understands it. This is understanding. One who is unwavering and undisturbed. So despite the three modes affecting, one is like a lotus flower, which is not splashed by the water. So the water rolls down the lotus, it never splashes the lotus. So in this way, one is unwavering and undisturbed. In the moment of Zen, he's able to, no matter what situation you give him, he's able to withstand it easily. Okay. One who remains neutral and transcendental. That is clear enough. One who knows what the modes alone are active. One who knows that the modes alone are active. So if any situation that he's in, he understands, yes, this is part of the three modes, how the modes are acting according to my karma. He understands this concept clearly in his mind, and he has realized this concept. One who is equipoised. So because he has all this knowledge, he is able to be completely equipoised. He is not disturbed in happiness or in distress, in loss or in gain, in heat or in cold. He remains fixed in his duty. He remains fixed in his service. So he remains fixed in his determination for spiritual advancement. So this is a person who is transcendent, one who is equipoised. And one who has transcended, he is able to see with equal vision. So here there's a nice picture. This is from a verse from the Gita also, where the learned person is able to see the Paramatma in every living entity. He doesn't see the body. He understands that this body is temporary. He sees the soul, the Jivatma and the Paramatma existing in everywhere. So he sees divinity in every aspect of creation. So this is a Sthita Prajna, one who is realized the truth. And automatically, naturally, he is therefore renounced. So one doesn't have to be falsely renounced, not falgu, but real renunciation of material activities. Okay, so now then we have this verse 1426. So after Krishna describes the Sthita Prajna 1421 to 25, he gives a culmination, very important point. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatitya brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once. So just now we said, right, one who is equipoised and determined to continue his duty or seva or activity despite the three modes acting around this, right? So here he says, one who engages in full devotional service, bhakti yogena sevate. And to who? Sevate to who? Sevate to mam, to me. Bhakti yogena sevate. So one who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, that means he is transcending, trying to transcend the three modes. At once transcends the modes of material nature. So how do we transcend these material modes of nature? So Krishna gives us the way to do it. So he says, fixed determination in devotional service is the way. And in this way, one can transcend the three modes and thus come to the level of Brahman very easily. Example, here's a nice story. This story comes from the Skanda Purana. It is also mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So this is the story of a hunter called Mrigari. So once Narada Muni was traveling in Prayag. Allahabad is now called, but again is changed. The name is being changed to Prayag. So Prayag is where the confluence of the three rivers, right, from Saraswati, Yamuna, and Ganga. So Narada Muni was going there, passing that area. And while he was passing, he went through a forest. And in this forest, he came across a bird which was shot with an arrow, but it's shot in such a way that the bird did not die. It's simply, it's going through extreme pain.
எனக்கு இந்த கிளாஸ் போயிட்டு இருக்கு சுதர்ஷன் பிரபு நான் கொடுக்குறாரு
Right. Thank you for that. Okay. So yeah, as I was saying, Narada Muni was walking through the forest and he saw a half-killed bird. That means the bird is not dead yet, but it's suffering in agony. So half-killed bird, and then as he walked further, he saw a half-killed rabbit, and then if he went further, he saw a half-killed deer. So like that, he started seeing many animals which were shot to be killed, but they didn't. But the shot didn't kill the animal. It was half killed only. It's like, it couldn't move, but it's suffering in great pain. So in this way, he saw and he thought, who is this unfortunate, sinful person who is doing this? And then he came across this hunter, Mrigari. Now, Mrigari, he wanted to go and collect these animals. And then he wanted to shoot some more arrows at some other animals. But then when Narada Muni walked towards Mrigari, the animals started to run away. And then Mrigari turned his head in anger and irritation. Who is that scared away all these animals? So then finally, when he sees Narada Muni in front of him, he was very angry and irritated. But at the same time, when he saw Narada Muni, he became pacified. He was like a little calmer. Now we can try to imagine what kind of modes these two personalities are. So Mrigari, at first glance, it looks like he's in the mode of ignorance, isn't it? So he's trying to kill and he's trying to cause a lot of pain to creatures. He looks like a person in the mode of ignorance. Whereas Narada Muni is actually transcended. He's a Sthita Prajna. He's beyond the three modes. So anyway, so then Narada Muni will ask, are you the one? Who are you? Then he'll say, I'm Mrigari the hunter. And then he says, why have you come here and chased these animals away by your presence? I was going to shoot them. And then Narada will say, okay, you are shooting them, but you are a hunter. So it's not a very good job, but what to do? At least it's you have to live in this way. You are killing the animals, but at least kill them. Why do you leave them suffering like this? And then Mrigari says, I was taught to shoot the arrows on the animals in this manner, to not fully kill them by my father. My father taught me this technique of how to shoot them, but not kill them. And why I do this is because, well, for one reason is because their flesh is tastier. Because, when animals are in suffering, it's actually a technique which is being done in many places in the world also. Sometimes I've seen personally in Malaysia, the way they kill chicken, they don't kill the chicken directly, they just slice a bit of the neck, right? And then they throw the chicken into a place. So the chicken will bleed to death. It'll flutter everywhere for a while, blood everywhere within that basket, and then eventually it will become weak and then it will die out of blood loss. So why they do that? In other places also, they half kill the animal and they hang it upside down for a while sometimes. So why they do this is because when someone is in fear, or when a creature is in fear and goes through agitation, its body releases adrenaline. It's a hormone. So this adrenaline has the effect that when the body dies, when the creature dies, due to the prolonged exposure of adrenaline in the body, the flesh becomes tender. So this is one of the secrets of the butchers to make tastier meat. So therefore he was saying, I enjoy this. And at the same time, I also enjoy seeing them suffer. When they struggle in this way, when they wriggle in pain, and the type of sounds they make, and the way their limbs spasm, I actually take pleasure out of this. I like it. So this is what Mrigari said to Narada. Can you imagine the scene? This is described in scripture. So then Narada Muni said, okay, but do you know if you kill them, that is sin. But by making them suffer unendingly like this, do you know how much of sin you are getting? And then when Mrigari heard this, sin, what do you mean sin? I do not know anything about sin. And then Narada Muni explained the concept of sin and what will happen in your next life. So when Mrigari heard this, he somehow, as he was talking to Narada Muni, his faith grew. Because of Narada's blessings and his presence, he was able to create a little bit of faith in this Mrigari. And Mrigari started to believe. And he said, oh my goodness, okay, if that's the case, what should I do? Please tell me, what should I do? How can I save myself? What's best for me? So then Narada Muni said, okay, first thing you need to do, first thing, break the bow. You're having a bow, right? Break it. Then when he heard that, Mrigari was a bit hesitant. He thought, but this bow is my livelihood. If I don't know how to earn my living and provide for my family in any other way, so if I break my bow, how will I live? Then Narada Muni says, don't worry. By the grace of the Lord, because you are dedicated to my instructions, I will find a way for you to live. Are you ready to be my disciple? Are you ready to take this process? Then said, first thing, break the bow. Then Mrigari, he took a leap of faith and he said, okay, I will break the bow. And he broke this bow. So therefore, after that, Narada said, okay, now what you do? I will send the food for you. I will arrange for food to come to you. So you don't have to worry. So what you need to do is basically, I want you to leave your home together with your family, go to another hut by the river, Ganga, and there worship Tulasi. I want you to take Tulasi plant, and with Tulasi, I want you to worship Tulasi daily, and at the same time, I want you to chant the names of Vishnu. So in this way, you Narayana, the chant the names of Narayana. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This mantra he told, and in this way, constantly worship Tulasi and offer her Ganga water and chant the names constantly. So then this Mrigari, he did that. He moved and everything, but to his surprise, he will every day get lots of people coming to visit him, and they will give him all kinds of food. They will give him grains, they will give him fruits, they will give him whatever that he needs. In fact, so much so that he had to turn some of them away. He said, initially he took it all, but as he went on doing this process, he had changes of heart. And then he used to say, okay, never mind, I don't need so much, please give away, please take it back. So and then he even told some people, please don't come, it's okay, I have enough food. So then one day, Narada Muni came to meet this Mrigari the hunter. And together with him, he brought his friend, Parvata Muni. And both of them came, and Mrigari the hunter was no longer behaving like a hunter. So when this Mrigari, he saw Narada Muni coming, immediately he got up and he tried to run towards Narada Muni so that he could give his obeisances. But while he was doing, he was jumping from one side to another side in a very odd manner. One leg jump here, another leg jump there, like that. He's jumping, and he's coming towards Narada Muni. And then he gave his obeisances. Before he gave his obeisances, he dusted the entire area off, and then he took his obeisances. And then Narada Muni blessed him and said, oh, Mrigari, why are you jumping like this to come here? And then Mrigari said, I am jumping like that because I see so many insects and I don't want to accidentally step on them and kill them. So therefore, I am doing this. And just now when I did obeisances, I saw some ants there. So I had to clear the ants so that, I can do my obeisances to you. So when Parvata Muni heard this, he was Narada Muni's friend. He was very amazed. Wow. So Narada Muni's potency is so great that he could change such a horrible, sadistic hunter into such a person who is completely, so worried about other people's pain. So, today I sent a song also, Vaishnava Janatu. It's a very famous song. It's actually famous due to being sung by a very great poet, Narsi Mehta, and he's actually a devotee coming from the Rudra Sampradaya line. But it was made famous later on by Gandhi, who liked to sing this song. So one of the verses there is, a Vaishnava is he's always concerned about the pain of others. So this is Para Dukkha Dukhi. This is the verse. Para Dukkha Dukhi. He is unhappy when others are unhappy. This is his quality. So, and Mrigari became this way, simply by following this process of bhakti. What process is this? So you remember here is this verse, Mam Chayo Vyabhicharena, one who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature. So Brigari was able to, from the deepest, darkest mode of ignorance, he was able to quickly come to the mode of goodness by the blessings of Narada Muni. And in this way, he continued his performances of Bhakti, Bhakti Yogena Sevate. And in this way, he transcended the three modes and attained the level of Brahman and further on. So in the same way, Srila Prabhupada also, just a bit of something about how Srila Prabhupada also, when he went to the West, he did not have disciples who were, well-to-do, or he didn't preach to great rich people or elite people, because he didn't have any money. He only had 40 rupees when he came to New York and when he arrived in Boston Harbor. So anyway, what he used to do, he will go to the park and he will sit there in the park, and just with one kartal, he will chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And somehow by that, the tree which he sat under, the Tompkins Square Park, the tree which he sat under is still there, and it's being labeled now as the place where Srila Prabhupada sat. That place made history. Simply by him sitting and chanting there, he attracted people. So this is a picture of how, and the type of people who came to him at the time, that's the time during the hippie movement. So a lot of people who are, hippies, they are delinquents of society. They drop out, they take drugs, they indulge in sexual activity, illicit sexual activity. They do all kinds of things. So there were some of them there. And then they were also trying to escape the materialism. They were trying to seek the truth somehow. So Prabhupada will sit and chant, and they were somehow attracted to Prabhupada's chanting, simple chanting, just with kartals. And they would come and they would sing and dance around him like this. So you can see here a picture of how Prabhupada used to chant, and they used to come and sing and dance around him. They used to have parties like this. So in this way, slowly, by his association and by giving them these processes of Bhakti Yoga, he was able to convert the hippies into happies. So this is the miracle that happened in 21st Avenue, in the slums of the Bowery, the slums of New York. So this is an example of the same type, where we can say this verse, Mam cha vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevati. Very quickly, a practical example of how such devotees, how such people in hippies, they were able to convert from the mode of ignorance, come to the mode of goodness, and continue in the path of transcendence. So, right, so then this is the last verse. So after that, Krishna ends with this verse. Brahmano hi pratishtaham amritasya yasya cha shasvatasya cha dharmasya shukasya ikantikasya cha. And I am the basis of that impersonal Brahman. Because earlier he says, one who practices this Bhakti Yoga, the Sevate, serving Bhakti Yoga with determination, right? He is able to transcend these three modes, and he is able to come to the platform of Brahman. So because he mentioned Brahman, now Krishna is saying, and I am that basis of that impersonal Brahman. Brahmano hi pratishta aham. Aham is me. Pratishta aham, I am that impersonal, I am the basis, the resting place of that Brahman. And this Brahman's quality is what? Amritasya. It is immortal. It is yayasya, imperishable. It is sasvatasya, eternal, and dharmasya, the constitutional position of the spirit. So in this way, Lord Krishna ends this particular chapter of chapter 14. Okay, so the takeaway here is, these were the subtopics we discussed. Prakriti Jnana for Param Gatim. That means the knowledge of Prakriti, how material manifestation takes place. We heard about how from Pradhan, it converts, it differentiates into Prakriti, and then from Prakriti, from Pradhan, it manifests into Prakriti. From Prakriti, it differentiates into Mahatattva, and then from Mahatattva, it differentiates into the 5 Pancha Bhutas, the 5 elements, then the 5 Pancha Indriyas, and then the Jnanendriyas, the Karma Indriyas, and in this way, the full 24 elements of manifestation is created. We heard about that. And then how basically more details about Brahman and the Prakriti. Then we talked about the nature of Prakriti. So the nature of Prakriti is Sattvam, Rajas, and Tamas, its qualities, and its what are the results, and what happens when people die in these qualities. And then how to transcend the 3 modes. So basically, recommendation here is Bhakti Yogena Sevate, the means of transcendence. And in this way, one can attain the Param Gatim, who is the basis of the Brahman. So takeaway is Mother Prakriti, or rather surrogate Mother Prakriti, and Krishna the Father, the seed-giving Father. We heard those verses. The 3 gunas, quality and results. By bhakti, we can transcend the 3 gunas, and Krishna, the basis of Brahman. And with that, we'd like to end with this nice verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Apanna samshritim goram yannama vivasho grinan tathaha sadyo vimuccheta yad vibeti swayam bayam. Living beings who are entangled in the complicated meshes of birth and death. Samsaram, goram, horrible. Goram means horrible. In this horrible situation of samsritim, continuous birth and death, can be freed immediately. How? By even unconsciously chanting the holy name of Krishna, which is feared by fear personified. Bibeti swayam bayam. Bayam is scared of this name of the Lord. Fear itself is scared of the name of the Lord. So in this way, one who takes shelter of this process of the holy name of the Lord, chanting the names of the Lord with faith, one will be able to immediately escape this birth and death, samsara. So it's a nice verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which we can remember to motivate ourselves to also continuously chant the names of the Lord every day. So let us do that now. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Tat Sat. So Hare Krishna everyone, thank you for listening. Are there any questions anyone wants to raise? Don't see anything in the chat. Were you able to follow the model about the Prakriti and the changing from the Pradhan to Prakriti and all that? Or?
Yeah, actually, Prabhu, Rajan here again, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
When you describe the creation from Pradhan to the 24 elements, so I would suppose that that is actually cyclic and not a single creation. So if that is so, does it happen in one Chatur Yoga, one Manmantara, one Kalpa, or is it in one Brahma lifetime, which is 100 years?
Okay. All right. So in Brahma lives for his 100 equivalent celestial years. So at the end of that Brahma's life, this universe that we live in is destroyed. And when this universe is destroyed, then this universe is like a bubble, one single bubble. So like that, there are many bubbles which come and go from the body of Mahavishnu. So in that sense, the cyclic, so one bubble will get destroyed and then again the bubble will again come out. So when Mahavishnu, he breathes out, the bubbles come out. So each of these bubbles is constituting of one universe. And then when Mahavishnu breathes in, these bubbles are destroyed. So, and that is to be understood as the end of Brahma's 100 lifetimes. So 100 lifetimes of Brahma is basically simply the time of the inhalation and the exhalation of the Lord in the form of the Mahavishnu or Karana Dakashai Vishnu. So he lies in the Karana ocean. This Karana ocean, so in there the bubbles come out from the pores of his body. So these details we will discuss more in level 2. So when this happens, the Pradhan itself is manifested only once. The Pradhan is manifested and then the Prakriti is already, the Pradhan becomes Prakriti, and from Prakriti, it remains in the same situation. So what happens is simply transformation. So some universes are destroyed, some universes are created, some universes are destroyed and they are created. But when the universe is created again, then these material elements are created again. So in that way, it's cyclic. So it is basically one lifetime of Brahma. So that is where the Mahapralaya means the universal destruction. Mahapralaya takes place at that time. But at the same time, in between also, there are many small pralayas, small pralayas, where certain planetary systems get destroyed and recreated again. So in different time cycles, like the earth will get inundated and then again it will get, and this will happen in a shorter time frame. It could be within one Manvantara. Yeah, I believe it's around one Manvantara. Sometimes there is also within different yugas, there is a minor destruction that takes place from one yuga to another yuga, or one full yuga cycle. Sometimes partial destruction takes place also. So there are small destructions which take place, just like bubbles, and then there is also the entire Mahapralaya, with the one entire universe gets destroyed. So this is how it goes. Is that okay, Prabhuji?
Thank you, Prabhu. That means what you're saying is Pradhan is one.
Yes.
But the rest of it are cyclic.
Yes, correct.
Because Pradhan seems to be, to me, appears to be able to explain the Big Bang, you see.
Yes.
That it started from a single point, So
yes,
it's kind of.
yeah.
Thank you.
Funny you should mention that. I was just hearing. I just happened to see an article today where scientists now are thinking, it began with a point, and then now they are questioning, did it really begin with a point? So they are like they are finding. This is what scientists do. They will come up with theories and counter theories. This is from one of the journals which I was reading.
They'll get the answers from the Gita.
Yes. So there are some things that they cannot know. This is beyond. This is so far away in the beginning of time that it's not possible to get traces. It's just like they are trying to, identify if based on the reactions. So it's bound to have mistakes along the way. Just like the human model, even the model of the atom, there were 10 revisions of the model of the atom just within this last 200 years. And even now, the model of the atom is still being revised. So it's nothing at all like what we learned when we were in school. It's quite different. Anyway, yeah, so that's off the point.
Thanks, Prabhu.
Haribu. Any other question? Okay, so if there's nothing else, then I think we will end it here. So tomorrow will be chapter 15. So it's also quite interesting. It is actually more interesting. and hope to see you all again at that time. So Hare Krishna, see you everybody. Srila Prabhupada ki, Sri Krishna Bhagavan ki, Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you, brother.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, sir.
Now I want to see.